emerging terror organization known as the Syndicate has control of our entire drone fleet. Their targets unknown.
My name's Keith, and I'm the president of the Syndicates. And I want to thank you all for coming. This is a Middle Friday event. First Fridays we have swing dance. Third Fridays we have swing dance. And middle Fridays we're also going to dance, but we're going to talk first. This is my friend Jared Bauer. And this is Dan Heat.
And we're on the board.
And we're on the board. We're representatives, if you will.
Argue that we are the board.
What we're going to do today, and it's going to be different next time you come back next month for the next Middle Friday. What we're going to do today is we're going to tell you the story of the Syndicate. So this is how we're going to kick this off. We're going to get into some more deeper controversial matters later on, which will be fun. Right, Dan?
Always.
Can you guys hear me all right? Louder, okay. Renee, you want to check the volume? Make sure we're not cranking it too high. All right, so today we're just going to tell you the story about the Syndicate. For right now, I'll tell you what we are today, and then we'll get into how we got here. We're called the Yakima Valley Society for Cultural Education, and that consists of the Syndicates. Right here, you're at the Dance Syndicate, and later on, we're going to have some fun dancing. We also have a theater syndicate, and in the past, we've had a culinary syndicate and a music syndicate. And even today, I heard that the music syndicate is on the rise again.
Can't keep it down.
Can't keep it down. Apparently the culinary syndicate you can keep. So the dance syndicate, we get together, like I said, 3 times a month. And we also have special dances throughout the year. But what really drives what we do is our small groups. Jared, you want to talk about small groups?
Yeah. The small groups are, usually they have a project that they work on. We put together a group of people that have been attending our events, and we invite them to be a part of the group. And then they work for 3 months. We reevaluate, pick a project, and then recommit for another 3 months. Right now, the small groups are structured around learning aerials, and then the project depends on the need of the syndicate that the small group is a part of.
Okay. So the people who've gone through the small groups can make up the base of the syndicate, and that's where a lot of the momentum and ideas come from that we feed off of. So that's good. So that's who we are right now. We just got done with our 2nd annual Snowball, and that's a New Year's Eve banquet and then ball. Formal affair, invite only. Invite only just because we can't really expand too quickly. We're not that good. We can't have as many people show up to that as do the Christmas dance. We're not there yet. All right, so now I've only been in the dance group for, Stephanie, how long?
2008.
Since 2008, so going on 5 years. All right. But it's been going long before that, and I wasn't heavily involved until maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So I'm going to have Jared tell you how it got started.
Yeah, sure. I'd love for you to ask me questions, Dan, on occasion.
I don't ask questions.
I have 3 things to say, followed by a question.
Okay.
I know you're gonna have a hard
I'm
time
gonna throw
with it.
all of those out.
Oh, good.
We're switching roles. I have questions and you disregard everything I say.
I don't think you've been big enough. All right, so we started with the Zilla Swing Kids teaching in the high schools, and I was nominally involved with Ben Creech and Bethany Myers. We initially had a great deal of success, and then we started to fail pretty badly.
Why did you guys start?
We started because there was a prom, and the principal shut down the prom because of the sexual nature, of the dancing that was going on. Apparently it was extremely bad. So he shut it down, sent all the kids home, and then someone heard about it. I'm a little confused about the details, but a teacher that attended our church forwarded Beth to teach them how to really dance. And originally, ideally, what was going to happen was we were going to teach them how to swing dance, and all these high schoolers were going to love swing dancing so much that they were going to change their proms into swing dances and abandon their wicked ways. It didn't happen that way. What happened instead was a select group of individuals got really excited about it who were already friends with Beth, including Annie Green, Chelsea Garner, Evan Sainsbury, Bennett Mayo. And they formed something that has become something that I've definitely have started paying really close attention to. They formed an inner circle that drew other people in, but as soon as that group of individuals graduated from high school, the dances that we were having once a week at Zilla High School stopped being cool, and we were dealing with 4 or 5 freshman girls on Tuesday nights. And we did that for about a year. And then what was going on here at Terrace Heights, there was a guy that was running things here, and there were about 6 girls that really found him attractive, and they all came, and then other guys came because the 6 girls were there. And then one day, he decided that he wasn't going to do it on a first Friday, and a bunch of people showed up, and it was all locked down. There was no dance. He had gotten a girlfriend. Beth volunteered. She tended to volunteer for everything. And Beth volunteered to run First Fridays, and everybody rolled their eyes and groaned. But what wound up happening is we pulled together the same group of Zilla Swing Kids came in here to help Cole out, Fairbrook, and we started adding structure to the event. We upgraded the sound system because I was friends with Zach Stambaugh, and he had a big sound system, so we brought that in. It was originally a little boombox here on the stage with one CD that just looped.
They still have the CD.
Actually, I think these
Yeah, we do.
speakers are those.
Yeah, these
that
were
Zach
Zach's.
brought in,
Yeah,
the brown ones.
The brown ones.
Yeah.
So then we recruited some locals. We had, among others, we had Jacqueline Foster came in. She started putting together the playlists, which were phenomenal, because she wasn't stuck in the swing dance box. She brought in a lot of stuff that you could dance to that was not big band recordings from the 20s and 30s, which tended to be very poor quality. And then we did East Coast. I knew how to waltz and foxtrot, so we did that as well. What emerged at this point was unique. My now sister-in-law Beth decided to do a performance. As I said, she volunteered for everything. She decided to do a performance for her choir that was doing big band numbers at YVSCE. And there was a huge number of people that were there. It packed out the hub at YVSCE. And we worked hard on doing aerials. My brother Trenton had come back from
his time at the concentration camp in Dakota, and
It was a dairy.
it was,
Not a concentration camp.
sorry
For
about that.
cows.
And he showed up, he knew how to dance as well, and we worked on our aerials. I worked with Annie Green, whom I'd already taught how to swing dance earlier. And we did aerials in front of the big crowd, and they loved it. We got a huge standing ovation. We're just doing East Coast with several very intricate aerials. It was one of the hardest performances I've ever done. I did, I think, 4 or 5 aerials in a row without putting her down. And
Did you guys hear that? He was doing East Coast.
East Coast, yeah, they were like, so it was fun. That's when we made a few connections, and people started coming, because when you do aerials in front of people, they think, wow, you're the best dancer that ever existed, which is ludicrous. So we had a major attendance boom here, and then we had our first Christmas dance. And somehow, I don't exactly know how, the word got out about the Christmas dance, and for the first time, we had over 40 people in this room dancing, and it was, we thought, wow,
You've arrived.
this is amazing, 40 people swing dancing.
That's awesome.
And that's some of the people that attended. I think probably Stephanie was there.
2000.
No, it was before then. Maybe you weren't there. Dan was there. Jeff was there. And
2006.
2006, thank you. So in '06 we did that, and then a new group of people wound up coming forward. Trenton decided to pursue my friend Beth, who was supposed to be heading all this up romantically, and they were very busy, so it wound up being me primarily, with Zach, and then I started relying heavily on Jacqueline and Christina Peterson. So Christina was heavily involved at that point, whether she wanted to be or not, and Jacqueline, and then Chelsea Gardner got back into town, and Ben Creech got back into town, and we had our first real team or inner circle. And that was what we relied on to really create the boom. And what that group of friends did was they learned how to Lindy. And the way it worked was I turned to that group. There was a few other people that I tried to pull in, but they were kind of resistant.
Was that before Chelsea?
No, that was, Chelsea had come back. Chelsea had gone back, so it was before Chelsea died. We learned how to Lindy together.
Okay.
And we went to Portland Lindy Exchange when none of us knew how to Lindy. And it was horrible. Really bad. We'd had a few lessons, really, really bad lessons, learned how to do it wrong very well. And with the Lindy, it was very frustrating to see everyone else having a good time and to get out there and just be miserable the whole time, particularly as a guy, as a lead. So we did that, went to Portland Lindy Exchange. Because when you go on a road trip with a group of people, you can't help but bond. And the fact that we all were terrible together while we were there was a great thing for us. We got really close in a hurry. We all came back here, decided to pursue Lindy, so everyone else was busy or too busy or had other priorities. So it was primarily Jacqueline and I, and we were driving to Seattle and taking lessons over there. And then we were going to Ellensburg, and we were pretty much getting lessons anywhere we could, hired a few private instructors. The Lindy worked out fine for a while. And then, I don't want to go into a personal history here, but Chelsea Garner died. And it blew up our inner circle. And I was devastated personally. And the whole group was just, it was really bad. But we were growing exponentially and still trying to bring Lindy in, failing at it. We started Lindy Fridays right before Chelsea died. We were running First Friday and Lindy Fridays, and Lindy had never taken off. And the problem with Lindy was we would try and get lessons going. Everybody would be excited about lessons, but they would never show up for the lessons. And Lindy was not going to take off, which was hard. So after Chelsea died, I remember this guy who everybody knew in Zilla, or knew of in Zilla, Keith Effler, came back through town. He was famous for being a globetrotter and never
settling down or putting down roots. And most of the girls were in love with him. So he came back through town. He lived across the street from the Bauer compound, and he had done our website.
It's not a compound, it's a farm.
They farm children.
At a moderately sized farm across the street.
Moderately
Keith lived.
sized farm. Keith was there, thank you, Dan. And
Yeah.
he has put together the website, done an extremely good job with it. To make a long story short, one of the things that I realized was that in order to get Lindy working, we were going to have an inner circle. Now, I'd already studied a lot about study groups in a book called Dedication and Leadership, but I never got the idea of the inner circle down and connected that with the small group idea.
Mhm.
So that's when I decided that in order for Lindy to survive, we need to have an inner circle like the one that blew up when Chelsea died. And because I was privy to it rattling apart and all the things that tore it apart, that group of friends, and I was a big part of the reason why it got torn apart, the number one reason, arguably, I was able to, by the grace of God, kind of prime the group for what it was going to look like, and then I approached some people, and many of them are here, that I recognized as attending the dances, or whom I knew from beforehand, and asked them to be a part of what later became our first small group.
I think you're getting way ahead of yourself.
All right, go ahead. Anyway, is there anything, what should we cover?
Well,
I don't.
no. Dan's about to come in.
Dun, dun, dun.
Foreshadowing.
What I want you guys to know is that the syndicate is really made up of lots of people. And it's been built. What you see today and what you know and love has been built on the shoulders of many.
Yeah.
That's an excellent segue to where I come in.
Yes, it is. So, after Chelsea died, that winter was a sort of a bonding time in Zillah, which is where she lived and where I lived and Jared lived. And, you know, the Zillah swing kids were mourning. And that spring, Jared sort of spewed his idea. Keith, it's not just swing dance. There's something more to it. It's discipleship.
I think my language might have been slightly more colorful.
Usually is.
Yeah. Anyway, and the Holy Spirit got me to buy in. And I told him he was actually ready to leave for Ireland to go into the Irish military. No joke, actually.
Done all my research.
Terrorist
Yeah.
Yeah. The microphone just and so that spring I asked Jared, I said, Jared, I've got this awesome summer job. Do you want to come work this summer job with me? And this is where, you ever heard in the Bible it says, you know, gold refined, you know, you put it to fire and you get what's pure is left, right? So this is kind of, we took away the talking head, essentially. And it was a beautiful thing. So Jared and I...
Well, I would like to add though that I said if somebody doesn't come along and want to do this, then I'm out because I can't do it alone.
Right.
And Keith said, "I'll do it if you don't move to Ireland."
Right. So we left for the summer, 4 months. And
I have to back up a bit. I was introduced to swing dancing in 2006 by my friend who wanted to start a swing dance scene. And there was a swing dance thing going on here that he was not in the inner circle of. And he invited me, and I eventually started coming, and I discovered, hey, dancing is fun. Who knew? And I did that for about a year and a half. And back then, you guys may think this is the same, but it's completely different. Back then, you knew who was in the inner circle, and you knew who was outside the inner circle, and the inner circle was what it was all about. Now, this is going to sound familiar to a lot of you, but it is different in a couple key aspects. And I was in the periphery, and I had no desire or intention to be in the middle of this inner circle. It was just the way it was. Then it imploded. Chelsea died, and there were a lot of things that broke up. And there were people who were saying, I'm done with this. There were other people who, well, this still has value, so we're going to keep doing this as best we can. But it was in shambles. And that was when Jared and I started hanging out, because while Jared takes credit for the implosion of the inner circle, he leaves out the fact that due to several different things going on in his life, he was kind of a mess. Emotionally, spiritually, mentally, he was just a mess. And as we started relating to each other, we discovered that we were broken in very different places, but they sort of worked together. He started saying, this is what, that's when he told me it's not about the swing dancing, it's about the relationship, which was a revelation to me. Because being on the outside, all you see is the swing dancing, and you see the people who have that relationship. And you're like, well, I'm sure that it's about the relationship with each other, but I'm not so sure about this. And then Keith and Jared left, and I had sort of been invited into the inner circle, which was a commitment I could not take up. I was actually leaving the country on an unrelated matter and non-terrorist related. So,
Thanks for specifying.
yeah. Anyway, and so when they left, the major, the big talking head was gone. Chelsea, who they have alluded to, was a major drive. She was the girl who kind of set the tone of the dances. She'd dress a certain way, and the girls would follow, and the guys would dress up to match. And then, she died, and that kind of broke down. And so they were left with a couple people who were really just trying as best they could, and that's where Jake got pulled in as well. This is a barely running ship. We need people bailing it out constantly, otherwise it will go down. Good luck, and off they went.
And Zach as well. It's important to mention Zach.
It's actually called the Zach era in the history books.
We do refer to the Zach era. It was like, hey, this is a disaster and a mess. Congratulations, we're leaving.
So I was presented with an opportunity to join this catastrophe, which I could not take up on. But it happened very opportunely. I would have loved to have done it if my schedule had worked out. But in the meantime, while Keith and Jared are talking away in Idaho, gold being purified in the fire, they've realized, okay, the inner circle is still powerful and necessary, but it can't just remain that. So when they came back, when it was sort of like a almost simultaneous. I think I came back 2 months before you or something weird. I don't know. Anyway, there was this idea that, okay, the small group is still important, the inner circle is still great, but it can't end there. If it ends there, then this is swing kids all over again. So at that point, when he called the people up and said, hey, we're going to do this small group, it was done with the intention of discipleship and growth. And so there are people here who are part of the syndicate who aren't a part of the small groups. And there are people who are part of the small groups who are no longer a part of the syndicate. It's just the way it is. But it is a very handy tool. That's what I would have to say to that. Yeah. Continue.
I was just going to talk to. Let me know when I need to talk about the small groups. Let me know.
All right, so I want to tell you about the small groups.
That would be me. So Keith and I had a place on Chicago Ave, and then Keith got married.
Right.
And there was great rejoicing, except at my house. Keith had put together the 501c3. Keith had kind of kept the morale up when I was in major depression, and Keith was a man of integrity who had proven himself over a protracted period of time as someone that could lead and should lead and didn't want to, which was a good sign. So he got stuck with the new president job, and when Zach stepped down. And I started the first small group. James was in it, Jake was in it, even though Jake was like on the board running it, but you know, I asked him to be in the small group and he said yes. My cousins Laurel and Bree were in it. Did I say James?
You did.
Sorry about that, James.
You can say it
Don't want to
again.
leave you out.
70, Hightower.
70, Hightower, Russell, Glover.
And others.
And we can't forget Taylor, or he would be very crushed. Ben Record. There was a sizable number of people that had been coming for some time, and a lot of them were homeschoolers, which was okay.
Not great, but okay.
Take what you can get. And I honestly had no idea what was going to happen. We started working on Lindy, trying to teach them what was going to happen, and then prepping them for what they were going to go through as a small group. And if you've been through a small group, you've heard all the curriculum that I made up the night before or the day of. A lot of it was based on conversations I had with Keith while we were in Idaho. Just me agonizing about what went terribly wrong with our small group. I remember one point saying to Keith how frustrated I was that the little group of friends, these 5 friends that we had that started the Lindy scene, how frustrated I was that I was so brokenhearted that that wasn't there anymore, and that I had been dependent on that. And Keith very graciously patted me on the back again and said, "It's going to be okay." And then other conversations I was having with Dan, where I'd have a conversation explaining an idea with Dan, and then later that night I'd tell the Black Ops all about it.
True story.
And they're like, "Wow, Jared's really smart. He must have really worked this stuff out." What emerged from that was intentional relationships around an idea and or a cause. And specifically, I turned to the small group at one point and said, "You're like my Black Ops. You're going to go in there and you're going to create an inner circle that other people want in on. And that's the Black Ops." And they did.
And
And
they worked.
Lindy finally happened in Yakima after failing for, what, 4 years? Felt like longer. I was trying my best, doing everything that they did in Seattle, and it was Black Ops that made it happen. And then after Black Ops, Sam's bunching unitards.
Wildly bunching.
Wildly bunching unitards. And after them,
The
Expendables, and after them, the smallest group,
Not yet.
Not yet?
Misfits were first.
Misfits, sorry, and the smallest group.
Misfits!
Yeah.
Leaving out the small group
and
on
that-
small groups.
Yeah. And there was a small group on small groups. A lot of people that I've interacted with since then have, and I don't know if I've told you guys this or not, but some of the guys have come to me and said, well, the syndicate needs to do this, and why isn't the syndicate doing that, and why doesn't the syndicate do this? And then I say, because we really didn't hit our stride until 6 months ago, or 12 months ago. I remember the 1-year anniversary of Black Ops coming up, and Taylor being, of course it was Taylor, being really excited that his new family was celebrating their anniversary, and
It's so true.
and then I had
Taylor was excited about it, okay? None of us.
none of you were apparently, but especially Taylor, and it was I think Skylar Young came to me and said, "Why not this and why not that?" And I had to say, "Skylar, we're brand new. They just cut the umbilical cord." So, and you know, for me personally, you know, I do believe that it's important that we underline for these guys that this is really new. We had a dance scene, but I mean, really we didn't get intentional about and all get on the same page about making disciples and glorifying Christ in our relationships
2010.
until
2010?
2010.
2010 was Black Ops?
No.
Oh,
That's like where the idea started, and then,
all right.
so,
Yeah, when we got back, right?
yeah. You guys got back in 2009, I got back in 2010.
Thank you.
The snowball. Who all here attended the snowball? Okay.
3/4?
3/4?
2/3? The fractions?
Who attended the snowball thought that this organization can do anything and should do exactly what the idea you have in your head is? Right, okay.
Only 4.
No, there was
Oh.
About 8.
about 8, yeah, I was gonna say.
That's not bad, that's not bad.
We counted
No.
Renee twice.
So, that was interesting. That had nothing to do with the talk, I just needed to know that.
I think it was phrased a little bit confusingly.
Right, that's okay.
All right.
The snowball started, okay, this was December 2012, we just got done with. December 2011 was the first snowball. And it was September 2011 when I posted on the Syndicate board Facebook group, said, so are we gonna do this snowball? You know, or no, someone else asked that. Are we really gonna do the banquet and ball, as we were calling it then? And I said, well, let's do it, and we'll just see how big it is and how good it is, right? So our intention was to dance on New Year's Eve. That's all. That was it. And funny enough, it ended up being brilliant. And we just happened to have some skills in the group that worked out really well. So, do you want me to say what the snowball is, or
Do
just
you
the
wanna-
history?
Well, yeah, whatever.
Tag team.
Okay.
Right. The snowball. Great name. Very descriptive. It's a ball and there's snow.
Yeah. that was
And
great.
it gets bigger. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. This was a name that was sort of thrown out on the fly, and then prophetically it's become true. It's become this massive thing that may destroy Yakima one day. But,
Or us.
well, it will destroy, but it's a ball. It's a banquet, and it's a ball surrounded by teaching, fellowship, discipleship, dueling.
What do we call it? Snow camp?
No, we wouldn't. No.
Never. Dueling, yeah.
Yeah. So it's our thing. See, the eternal question is, how much do you say? Do you leave a little bit of mystery? Do you lay it out on the floor? Do you give some sort of a strange, fabricated, yes?
I'm just nodding my head, man.
So that's the
Yeah.
question. So whenever
Heavy.
people describe the banquet ball, the people who hear the description, the thing that is similar to the banquet ball but is legally distinct from, the frustration is always, you guys talk about it, but you don't say what it is.
And you kind of like that, don't you?
Yeah, it does please that broken part of my brain. It is an exercise in culture. It is a remaking culture in the image we would want to see it in. It is, it's bringing back the traditions that have been forgotten in the wayside that we never should have forgotten. Honoring women, respecting men, bringing Christ into the culture, changing the culture, and for His glory, taking dominion over aspects of life, any that we choose to do so. But that's not what the banquet and ball is. That's what the banquet and ball does. I don't know if it can be explained. Sorry.
Yeah, well, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's how I see it.
Yeah.
I see it as, if you're a Christian, you are the bride of Christ, right? And because the church is the bride of Christ. And as the bride of Christ, you have innate worth and power. And I see the banquet and ball snowball as
We're new.
I see the snowball as a representation of that and sort of stepping into a moment where you get to live that for a night. And there's no question about your worth or the power that you have as a man or woman to make excellent, I hate to use the word moral imagination. Anyway, excellent decisions.
I see, as I look around the room, I see the people that have gone to the banquet and ball nodding sage and saying, yes, that was exactly what it was like. And I see the people who didn't go are just like, that doesn't tell me anything. It was this question. Basically, Jared said, what experience would you want to have? Sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want, and as long as there is no sin in it, what would you create? What would you do? What experience would you have? And a lot of guys would say, well, I'd fight the enemy, I would rescue the princess, I'd slay the dragon, I would save the world. And the girls would say, I would be a princess at a ball, I would have the quarters and the staircase. And the knight in shining armor would probably fit in there somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the question was, what experience would you have if you could do anything? As long as you left sin out of it, what would you do? So the banquet and ball was our attempt to answer that question. It was largely Jared was like, this is what I would do. And then he kind of said, this is what it would be if we did the snowball. And then we're like, okay, I'm not sure how this will work. We'll try it.
Right.
So kind of encapsulating several of those ideas. What did we actually do? I'm not going to say.
If you haven't come, you'll find out. Stay tuned.
Something I think that would be important to talk about here is when we bandy about the word discipleship or mentoring, the idea is we have Keith or Jared or Dan up here, and then we have
Everyone else.
well, not Dylan, but everyone else down here, and we're giving them our righteousness, and we're helping them become a little more like us. Of course, they'll never quite be as good as us, but give them enough time and perhaps, by the grace of God, they might come close. And that is the idea of mentorship in the secular sense and of discipleship in the sacred sense. That is a lot of what tends to go on. Now, I realize there are always exceptions to that. But the idea of discipleship instead of what the syndicates hope to do is this right here does actually have a great deal of value when you're in a position where you have an elder that is instructing you on how to live your life. That is taken care of. Unfortunately, I am not an elder at my church, so I cannot, in good conscience, put myself in this position where I'm doing this. And that's why I say it as in Jared is going to bring you up to his level. Instead, what I look to do is to relate to you as an equal and seek to establish a level of conversation where we are mutually challenging one another into a relationship with Christ. And creating that atmosphere at our events, and more specifically within our small groups, where that challenging is going on. The idea around the banquet and ball would be experiential education, which maybe I should just take a break for a second.
Yeah.
I would love to jump in for just a second. You guys have seen the way we do it at our dances. And the way it's done is you have your two levels. And the level is, this is how the ladies will dress, this is how the men will act to the ladies. If it was like this, and if it was in the first diagram, it would be, you guys are all doing this, you guys all have to do this, you guys, if we do this, you're out of here, blah, 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 blah. Which is actually not what we do. What actually we do is we say, this is the standard, guys. You must come up to this level. And on this plane, we're all equal, which means if Jared's here, and there's this person in here, it's like, you have to raise your level of conversation. In other words, don't just talk about the last movie you saw. You can talk about movies, sure, but if that's what your conversations talk about, then it's down here. Anyway, so raise it. Just standards up here. Good. Now we relate as peers. Now we're, frankly, equal. That's kind of the difference. It's not I'm in charge and I'm going to tell you what to do. It's more, this is where we're going. join us.
Right. So I'm going to wrap it up there. And I think the takeaway from this is that the syndicates are growing. And by God's grace, we will continue to serve in ministry, if you want to call it that. I've never actually said that phrase. That's weird.
Yeah, we're backing away from that.
Wait.
We're going to keep doing, we're going to keep serving God in this aspect for as long, because we have fun.
Most of the time.
Yeah. And you guys are more than welcome to be a part.
So are we gonna field questions from the group at some point, down the road, not tonight, but?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, we will field questions from the group at some point. It's nice and vague.
Thank you, Dan. Should I pray?
Yeah, please.
I'm gonna pray.